Welcome, everyone. Hey, Don.
Hey, Julien, how are you?
I'm doing super.
Uh, Great. Welcome everyone
Welcome,
to
everyone. Yeah.
to season two, episode four. We should come up with better names.
Season.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Maybe we come up with like a name for the
a
show, but
name for the show, but then we would have to know what we're talking about before we get into it. So,
yeah, we never
but
completely know how that's going to turn out.
anyways, so I'm back in Miami now. So first show back home.
Back
Uh,
warm Miami.
Hot
Hot,
Miami.
no, not warm, hot.
Hot, muggy, uncomfortable.
So when you were
Yeah.
here, you're like cooling off or something.
Oh, totally. Totally. Being on
It
Seattle,
was hot
yeah,
here. It was hot
it
here,
was
people.
not.
It was upper. It was in the 80s, not upper 80s. It was in the
Yeah,
80s.
80s is like you open up the windows here in Miami and sleep. So you live for that. But it was, it was down by the sound. It was even cooler. So,
Hmm.
uh,
Man, well, this is, I live really close to Canadian border, probably for this reason that I'm Canadian, but, you know,
probably,
probably has something to do with it.
yeah.
Hey, everybody in the chat room, I realize it's already gotten cooking even before I think the show even started, so
Wow.
that's
Yes,
cool.
exactly. This is like amazing. So
So we've got a couple things to talk about today,
we
and
do.
I can't remember where we decided we were going to start.
We are going to start. We kind of do a continuation of last week's show to start with, is talking about the Pleiadian economy, and they're kind of describing how they feel about economy and what they do with theirs, and also maybe
Hmm.
we can get into some ideas that they see possibly in our future about how
Yeah.
that will work for us as we keep moving through this transition and come out the other end.
Yeah, so last week was basically the Pleiadian special, right?
Yes.
We're going to continue on that a little bit today, but we're not going to spend all day talking with them about it. But they did have some really interesting things that, they kind of wanted to fit in last time, but it was okay. I'm going to talk about it this time around. And that is getting into very specifically how an economy is seen by them. Where do I start? They're going to tell me. Great, it always helps. So
It's
they're
easier that way.
they're telling me that economy is highly affected by how awake the population is. Okay, so depending on how awake the population is, the more grid work and structure is needed by large groups of people that can surface in a world. A lot of the worlds that are out there are not necessarily don't necessarily have as many people as we do, but it doesn't matter because we still use an economy even like at a at a county or a city level, right? Like
Hmm.
if we just took money away, we'd be in heaps of trouble trying to figure out how everything is supposed to go if we just were to change that overnight. Um, there are areas in our world, like in movies, where we've seen economies break down, or sort of hypothesized things, what financial things would take place if say the electric grid went down and if it
Right.
became like a third world country in the West or something like that.
And even that, we also see like historical movies, or even I'm thinking like the Lord of the Rings movies, where you've got one place, essentially one planet, but there's different people living in different areas that have got their own economies that they don't even mix with trading or that sort of thing. Only when war enters the picture do they
Right.
get involved with each other.
Yeah. And we're moving in, as a world towards more unity, as in, our economies would essentially affect each other more and more and more as we go further.
Mhm.
As our communication, develops, as our transportation abilities, develop, and as we simply involve more of the world community in what we do. Um, so, just the point is to settle the differences between one of the main factors that the Pleiadians have that we don't, for the most part, which is that they have a smaller story. Like, economies tend to be on small scales, not on large scales. When you're on large scales, you'd think it just sort of scales up. But what happens when you scale up is you become less and less personal, right?
Right.
And realistically, interactions between people is, the more personal it is, the more value there is in the actual exchange, and more value is given to what is exchanged, in a way, right? So since we have a very impersonal equation in our world, we have an economy. I mean, it simply operates that way. Now, if we were more awake, we'll say, evolved or something like that, you'd say, oh, we could take away economy. That's not necessarily true. Economies surface in an area where the diversity of, say, products or experiences is very large, too. So the Pleiadians have economies on their home worlds. It may seem like they don't. Like, maybe it might be something like you'd imagine seeing in Star Trek, where, there's no economy. But there's definitely a function for interactions that help things get measured, right? And you'd say,
Sure.
why should we measure? It's because not actually everything is realized as fully abundantly available. Sometimes economies determine priorities, like, ticket seating. People who pay the most get to sit up front because they want to, and it's not because you're special or something like that. But that's where systems that we have, where status is a form of economy in its own way, that it yields weight. That when people of a high status operate with someone of a low status in our world, it's a kind of exchange that benefits the person in in the low status environment, right? Or it can be a status of knowledge, like someone with a high level of knowledge operating with someone with low level of knowledge, and there's a participation there. If the person with low level of knowledge does not have something to offer back in such a way, in a conscious way, then you might think there's an imbalance.
Right.
So economies only really show up for the sake of balanced interactions. And Pleiadians are really good at, like, not asking for anything, right? And that's because they see, the bigger picture. They see kind of like, this helps this helps this, and it all balances out in the end.
So they're not enablers then, by choice, by not asking for anything in return.
I guess you could say that.
Okay.
But in some circumstances, there is a demand, and economies establish the supply and demand requirements. Like, economy suggests where there's a demand, right? So let's just say everybody wants a spaceship. Well, everybody doesn't get a spaceship because, it still takes time and energy to produce these things.
Right.
Now, you could say, no economy, I'll just wait my turn, right? Or it could be, no, whatever I can do to help it make it go forward, like if I can contribute in some way, there's ways to, measure how some people are at the head of the contribution cycle versus others. So economy is another way of just using numbers and weights and values in a more impersonal manner, right? When you're on a planet and you've got a lot of people and a lot of diversity, it's really difficult to sort of just have the ideals of, how everyone else is doing. Especially when the idea of equality has nothing to do with one another. When you fundamentally get to a stage of evolution, equality has everything to do with how you feel about the balance of your own manifestations. So technically, a higher evolution in consciousness determines that everything takes care of itself implicitly. There is no need for weights or measurements or scales of any sort, and that takes place. But when you go out into space, there's lots and lots and lots of people who are not that conscious, right? They're not, they're like humans floating about the stars, not very conscious. Now, you do end up with some communities, within their community, economy means nothing. Everybody has a role and they take care of it. Like, say, on a military base, people just have jobs to get all the jobs done. Like everybody just takes, just takes a shift in doing whatever factors need to take place. Right. So with that in mind, and that sort of being settled, it is sort of like a balancing feature. You probably could look at our reality from that point of view and say, well, there's some kind of weird imbalance here, with some people having a lot of wealth and seemingly capability versus other people who do not have as much wealth or capability, right? And this is originally derived from the process of evolution. And the evolution is the evolution of consciousness. So the kings and queens, the leaders, the sort of like, the people who, who moved and shaped the world, they would be considered people who know how to take the reins and choose what they're going to focus on and choose what their intentions are going to deliver for themselves. So with that in mind, you have people who have shaped our world through their actions and their intentions and through following through, and they end up in a position where they look at themselves as sort of like deserving more, right? So they put a price on one of their services because they put a lot of effort into it, that sort of thing. And they see that, it's unique or not many people are offering these services. Let's look at, the idea of the original trade system, where ships went around and, delivered, precious goods or just, foodstuffs or things like that around the world. There was still an exchange system with other cultures that didn't have the same monetary, value system. It was all trade. It was all interpersonal trade. And
and gold became very important.
And gold became something that you can find kind of anywhere and offered a great deal of precious commodity sort of qualities to it. There's other reasons why gold was also picked, energetic reasons as well. But for the most part, when you look at an economy today, we in our world, we use the term economy to reflect that there's a balance that's established and everyone can kind of agree on how the balance is taking place, right? But as you get into this awareness of like the 1% have all the money in the world or something like that, and the disparity of people thinking that they're not actually that special, like they think they're special, but everyone else doesn't think they're that special. You kind of come up with issues with regards to the balancing features that would normally surface in an economy if everyone's balanced. Especially in a world where, we're coming into this state of, fighting for equality, the civil rights movements and things like this, like fighting for equal opportunities and everything, right? So in this way, economy is getting strained and not able to keep up. That's mostly what we're facing at this time. It's not able to adjust quickly enough, even with computers, even with stock market, rates and, foreign exchange rates and this sort of thing. The way people are valuing themselves is moving into the realms of valuing themselves nearly as much as the people who see themselves as movers and shakers of the world. So with that in mind, there appears to be a need for a redistribution, as some people identify it, like a redistribution of wealth or a reassessment. Basically, let's start over the economy in another way, right? Now, Pleiadians don't think that's a bad idea at all. They think that's a great step forward, right? But they also know that people are awakening. And they also know that the economy itself affects the awakening too. As people who still associate with their value as determined by the economy determines what their value is. Their self-esteem does not raise their vibration above certain levels because they equate their ability to acquire things with, how they see themselves. And they're basically taught how they see themselves based on where they fit in the scale of the economy, determining, what's of value. And, you can be doing like one of the most important jobs in the world, like being like a school teacher, and you can be paid squat. That sort of like determines the value system. In other countries, other than the United States, teachers are paid differently than the relativity here. So different levels of importance that take place. So in this way, it's not really a reevaluation of economy so much a reevaluation of values and reevaluation of our personal sense of empowerment that that we could all do better if all our empowerments move up equally. Like if everyone feels more empowered equally, well then we'll have a completely different attitude overall. Some people will argue the point that if you raise everyone's wealth or you raise everyone's confidence at once, then they just compete over less resources, right? Or they'll compete over the same resources more. And that's not the point. I mean, obviously, you raise everyone's personal level of, self-esteem and self-worth. That begins to take place. The economy readjusts as, should adjust technically as people reevaluate, how they give a sense of themselves. You can even look at the idea of the job market and people coming out of college. In the past, college was like, you felt great if you got through college. You felt important. You felt intelligent. And it's proving to be less effective toward, raising your fiscal self-esteem in the economy than it used to be, right?
Right.
So the Pleiadians, they're looking at it from that point of view in general. And when they look at like what's to come, it's already clear what's to come from their perspective.
Well, because the awakening through the economic issues, which is where a lot of people are awakening. The talk has been for several years now about the 1% or the 1/10%, and that's an economic issue. But it is bringing all these other subjects up too. That's where the education comes into effect. The idea that we're encouraged to go to college, and yet there are no longer jobs available for college graduates like there were when I graduated, and that sort of thing. So that drives that issue also. And even though the education and economics don't seem to mix, it's driven by the same force. And so therefore, how do we not look at this from a total jumble and get scared away from dealing with it, as opposed to just tackling all these issues at the same time?
Yes, and how do you tackle all the issues at the same time?
That's the big question. Yes.
It's not. It doesn't seem to be an easy thing to do.
Right, but you can't resolve one without at least considering the other ones.
That's right. So the Pleiadians do have a common answer to this, and they have they've been around other developing planets where their economy or something like their economy has gone through a revival, like like economy has come back into play, for instance. When things start to become scarce as a new resource or a new experience, comes on the scene. There's, how to determine priorities and this sort of thing takes place. And so economies sort of like show up. Economies show up when there's scarcity, essentially. And we are moving towards a non-scarcity reality, no matter how you want to cut it, even if the economy is crummy. We are moving, even just technologically, into a different kind of system where scarcity is seen less and less and less. But what's been happening?
Yeah, let's face it. The scarcity in many aspects was imposed on us a long time ago in order to create the economy that would separate us from those that have been running it for centuries. So
right, and
that's where the awakening is coming in is through the realization that that's what's actually been happening.
Well, yes, and from the conspiracy point of view, that some people might call that.
Yeah.
Even if you don't call it a conspiracy, there are ways to emerge from that, is what the Pleiadians want to discuss. So, just give me 1 minute. They didn't prep me on all the details. Okay. So what they're saying, and mind you, we're speaking with a particular Pleiadian named Masa.
Hi, Masa.
He is a character, we'll just say. I didn't think a Pleiadian economist would be like a character, but he's kind of a character. I don't know how I'm going to share that, Masa. Oh, he says don't make fun of me because it sounds like, like master, but like in a sort of like a dumb way.
he must have read my mind, because yes, that's what.
It's like, hi, Masa.
Yeah, it's like, how do we move out of the slavery economy?
Yeah.
But Masa's going to tell us.
Right. And I was like, what is that image you're showing me? Like, like hierarchy. Explain that, Julien.
Yes.
Okay, so...
okay. So we've all got a sense of humor about that.
I guess so. So the way out, like, the avenue is not necessarily an action item, but it is a perspective that will evolve, and you may even, he says, we might even look around and see that this is actually taking place. Like, this evolution is taking place. One is giving economy over to an artificial intelligence to deal with. So the old economy, everything that we valued already, that we've put numbers on it, give that to a centralized digital system, right? Okay. That basically sees the value and balances the equations, like does all the hard numbers of, like, make the economy operate and let prices dynamically adjust as people shift their own priorities. So instead of having people in power or people who own the mechanisms for creating product, right? Business owners and stuff like that, rather than them deciding in a monopolistic sort of way what the price will be, let a digital system balance all the numbers, right? And that occurs through a system where people are regularly, tracking what they're doing. Like, I buy this much bread, I use this much fuel in my car, this is what my day looks like, and let the machine sort of like observe that. Now, he says that's not going to happen right now because the conspiracy story has been pushed to the point where we won't trust the information gathering resource that technology might look like a way to control us or manipulate us or something like that. It's like we don't trust technology the way that it's implicitly owned by everyone. So this technology wouldn't be a corporation run. It might be supported by multiple corporations, but it would be like an open sourced economic forum, like Linux or something like that, or like the internet in general. Just an open, voluntary, inclusionary system for the sake of, helping, get the numbers, quite literally. The powers that be at this moment are familiar with that capability. A lot of, the high-end human economists, will say, are aware of that ability. And they're also aware that there are people that would not want that to take place. Like, that is not in their best interest to support that. So it's essentially not going to come from things like government or big businesses. Right. In fact, that's precisely the enemy of this procedure, quite literally. The way he's saying it. And he's not saying enemy like, just start a fight with them or something like that. But at the moment, it would not operate. Normally what you do is you'd create a pseudo-currency, and everyone would exchange on this pseudo-currency. But...
like Bitcoin or something like that?
Like Bitcoin or something like that. But the government has, at least the American government, has specifically... made it illegal to use pseudo-currencies. They're fine with trade, but even in trade, if there's a very high dollar amount on what you're trading, you still have to pay taxes on that trade. Right? So they're sort of like on top of the value of the dollar at the moment, and that's why government is not really helping. If they knew this, they would be helping, and they do know this, so they're consciously not helping. Right? Not only that, but it works better on the global level. right? Not just your local level, but it operates at a healthy level if everyone in the global community operated this way, because then resources between countries would have a much more effective reason for being transported. Like, to be a lot more business created by sort of like helping everyone smooth out the lines. Now, because of nationalism, people are not comfortable with that idea. So, this sort of like digital value system would still have to be done on local levels and probably wouldn't get to national, beyond a national level. With that in mind, small countries can operate on this right away as long as they have reporting processes in effect. Digital cash registers that can tell you, what's being sold and that sort of thing. But on another level, if you used your phone for doing all purchases, that's another way that you can also track everything really, really quickly too, right? So instead of using your wallet, you use your phone like your debit card, essentially, and operate it on that system. So with that in mind, that is basically what Masa is not just suggesting, but he actually expects it to go in that direction. Only because he didn't even try very hard. That's just how it's worked really well on other planets, right? Like, they're at a technological level where they're just like, you know what? There's some people being greedy here. If everyone agrees that, you as a consumer start using a more effective product to a more effective aim, then it will replace other systems in place. And it doesn't mean like not using the same currency anymore, but the reevaluation of what we spend our currency on will change and be much more of effective value based on the actual supply and demand that's taking place, rather than imposed business models of developing profit.
Were those other planets evolving from a system similar to ours?
Our evolutionary process is unique, he admits. But like anytime that that was mentioned earlier, that an economy surfaces as a need, there's usually some sort of artificial intelligence support system, right? Appears to be artificially intelligent because of the mass amount of computing they can do. But he says that we're in the age of cloud computing already, and most Westerners at least could even try this because everyone's got a cell phone, right? And the cell phone is already tied into a personal identity. So
it is. I mean, you can do a lot of things with your cell phone now. You've got Apple Pay. You can put your boarding passes on the cell phone to take a flight. That's expanding all the time.
Yeah, and you can purchase things before you get to the store, even like when you go to the movie theater and just show them the barcode, of your ticket. So you just walk in and bypass, the actual purchasing stage.
Exactly. You can order food through and have it delivered to your house, that sort of thing.
So it's already been researched by Sears how to eliminate lines in their grocery stores, where essentially you use your phone to snap all the barcodes, and basically you walk out, and everything that you're owning, you basically walk through like a scanner. And, it basically beeps if you didn't pay for it. If your phone, as the device, doesn't identify with having paid for it, well, then, the things that you normally would be caught shoplifting, it'll let you know if you're not fully paid out, right? So, that technology is coming forward. It's, in the works in a way. The shopping experience, stores don't want to be eliminated for the sake of, shopping, at home. That's still occurring. Shopping from home is just going to keep getting bigger. Anything that can be delivered to your door, people prefer that in general. But, so essentially the average consumer experience is moving really, really quickly. People may not be that familiar with it, but it is.
But Masa, so this is something that has probably been implemented fairly easily on these other planets. right? It's
Depending on the population and the technology,
okay.
it can be. It all depends on the criteria of importance, right?
Okay.
So really, what you're looking for is a non-profit solution business model that
Mm-hmm.
would, that would partner with, people who can program, and people who are looking to invest in the future, for humanity in general.
Okay.
Now, right now,
So,
there isn't a system for that. There isn't like nonprofit, technology businesses. Essentially, capitalism still drives most businesses.
right.
So this is more like creating a demand, and making it public enough so that people with the skills can step into, developing that process.
So has Massa acted more as an observer of these situations,
No,
or also as a consultant?
he's considered an economist. So as a consultant, he's there, and
So he's
he's seen,
consulted with these populations on these
it
planets,
worked
and
directly, yes, with
uh
leaders and whatnot.
oh,
So he's kind of a bigwig in a way. He's not even on that ship that I
I
talk
should have.
with.
Okay, I should have worn a tie, but okay.
He's not even officially on that ship that most of the Pleiadians I talk with are on. He's holographically brought in, and it just kind of works the same for me, however it is. So it doesn't really
Okay.
matter that he's not physically local.
Mm-hmm.
And he's being really gentle with me because he knows he knows I don't want to learn like economic terms and stuff like that. He's like, just keep it real, kid gloves, way of looking at
Right.
it,
Right.
so that everyone can kind of appreciate the value of what he's saying, and sort of
Perfect. I appreciate
get
that.
down to it. So Bitcoin, like Omni mentions, Omni Earth in the chat room, Bitcoin is he's explaining it as like a currency system that adjusts its value based on its usage. So it's a little bit more like a stock market item, and the stock market item fluctuates per how it functions. And yet Bitcoin is not a cryptocurrency, he says, but it is a form of currency that unfortunately is not regulated in the way that most people can understand, and so it's not considered a trusted procedure. It's not considered
Mm-hmm.
a trusted element of knowledge. It needs to be a little bit more basic than that, and it needs to be more accessible.
Okay.
Bitcoin is available to anyone that wants to get involved, and it is a really really great solution, but it is it's exclusive to your average person.
Right.
It excludes your the people from understanding still what something should be with regard to how much to barter with, right?
Mm-hmm.
Normally, in most worlds, bartering is the norm. Like bartering never went away. Everything still remains bartering. But in today's world, with the sheer amount of disconnect we have with the vendor itself, there's no time. Store shop, cashier, doesn't have the time to train in bartering, and learning the value of everything in a grocery store. There's too much diversity for them to actually handle that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you're not about to bring the store manager in, and have them come down and make those assessments. So it really needs to be at a computer level of processing level.
Right.
Okay. Regarding how long does it take for this to accrue and take to sort of like build the data? Let's just say this software just exists right away, like just say
Sure.
it came out like as an app tomorrow or something like that. It would take in the margins of around 3 months alone, because
Okay.
almost everything that everyone purchases within 3 months accounts for 99% of purchases. And once that's done on more than one occasion and developing averages based on physical location, so even GPS associative factors take place and take precedence, because the cost of moving goods itself is inefficiently done.
Mm-hmm.
In some cases, this could literally guide how to more effectively move product based on demand to where it should be. And also, given that some small improvements can be made to the distribution system, he says that there may become just sort of like you've got like a grocery store here, and that's got everything, and you've got like a, this kind of store over here, and that's got everything, and you've got a Walmart that has, something of everything in it. Each of these stores can actually reprioritize, in terms of what they actually, need. They already have these softwares in effect. Like Walmart already has an economy gauging system for, where product is going to work, where their assessment is. But it's more or less not isolated to business research for the business's end of profit, but for the end user's sake of, working with the economy more efficiently. Okay. So just by improving efficiency, most things that will change will be everything will actually become cheaper. Like things will actually literally become more available. You think that it becomes more exclusive or more difficult to acquire, but in fact, a great deal of waste occurs by not actually having a balanced value system that is associated with a local system. Let's just say you want to buy a speedboat. Okay, that's a little different. It's not going to be the value of speedboats. Okay, because the number of speedboat purchases that take place is so little. We're talking about like everyday expenses, and when everyday expenses become cheaper, that's the majority of your expenses shifting, including services. From how much you pay for electricity to how much where to put attention on sort of like services as well. So in fact, everybody's money is worth more. I mean, across the board, everybody kind of wins.
But then how does this change then how wages are paid out? Because that's all a big part of the economy also. The work that you do and the amount that you're paid, is that going to change with this model?
Well, no. This model is for the consumer, not for the enterpriser. The enterpriser itself.
But as a consumer, you are getting your money through your wages. Most consumers get their money through wages, the job they do, and that's going to change too because of the awakening and the shifting.
But not if it's implemented within 3 months. People's wages are not going to shift if it goes quickly.
Right.
Does that make sense?
No, I get that, but okay, that might be 2 years down the road, but it's still going to impact the economy and how all these things move.
Yes, I mean, it's like the value of services will change as well.
I mean, if Walmart redoes the way things that they do, they might even need fewer people working at Walmart, for example. So then there may be a good portion of the people that work at Walmart that decide that they don't want to work and or they want to do something different and they're going to be looking for different jobs. So again, that it's just setting up a different aspect of the economy that it goes beyond just the purchasing power that people have and how they get those products to them. Okay,
so Masa has explained there is an undercurrent motivator that establishes when economy is of value. As in sort of like, a weighted system. And that comes when there is a desire for something, right? Remember that sometimes economies show up because there is a new scarcity system that comes into play, right? Sometimes like a new alien race brings the technology, and now everybody has that technology. There's like a system that comes in so that people, who have a different sort of like higher desire for the product itself will put effort towards being at the front of the line of receiving a technology, or will work towards making sure this technology gets out to everyone faster. Whoever, just to sort of like, make things, come into play a lot more quickly. So, I mean, even in the world of food replicators, it's not like a microwave. Everyone's just going to have one tomorrow just because the technology was invented. People still need to be motivated to, reduce the cost of inventory and all that sort of thing, build factories that are getting more efficient so that, everybody can get that. Now, in a monopolistic environment, there'd be one guy making it, like microwaves, and like there's only one person providing it, and he would reap the benefits of deciding exactly what it is. However, in this system, it's literally saying if there's a need for more people at Walmart are going to get paid more, so more people will go and work at Walmart and pick up that job because, the wage, it literally drives people into a balance as it suits. It's like, teachers, maybe more people be teachers, now they're going to get paid more. Maybe that's, a truth of how the economy reevaluates by simple economics of the trades and balances of things. Okay? So, some things look like products and services, and, it basically indicates how it should be. It doesn't mean that it's that people have to change their prices, right? But when there's like a unified voice behind saying the prices should be this, like, come on, Walmart, $50 for a wool cap, like, that's bogus. We're not going to buy it from you anymore. If you're, there's plenty of competition where anybody can go down the street, buy a box of wool knit hats and sell it on the street right outside Walmart for like 50 cents each. And, that can take place, whether it's illegal or not. The obviousness of the value will force, business owners to literally, move to the needs of the people itself. It's like people should be determining what things cost, not the manufacturers should be determining what their cost. Manufacturers still have to pay their bills, right? But in terms of like some supply and actual demand, it's gonna get reevaluated, especially between companies that establish trading the same product, right? Now wool caps, sure, there's wool caps, and then there's designer wool caps. That's not going to change. The computer can account for these factors, can account for the fact that you're going to a designer clothing store, you're not going to Woolworths, or you're not going to JCPenney or Old Navy or something like that. So these factors are seen with large numbers. So basically, with a large numbers of things taking place, literally it can actually operate as a system that that clarifies the value of things, and the numbers, they can be just transparent. They can be right there. So you're paying this, it's worth this, and it may even say, our records show people bought this around the corner for cheaper. Quite literally, you're buying at the wrong place if you want to buy milk here. Things like that. Right. The grocery stores already compete, he says. What they'll do is they'll have some things on sale and some things overpriced, and they'll mutually, monopolistically compete. These people will sell eggs really cheap. These people will sell milk really cheap, but everything else is expensive. And basically they're undercutting on the eggs or the milk, but it doesn't matter because you're in the store picking up other things at the same time.
It's the cheap turkeys at Thanksgiving.
Right.
You buy everything else.
Right. So if this application were applied, the economy would change nearly overnight. I mean, 3 months is not overnight, but the numbers would aggregate very quickly. Would aggregate very quickly. Not to mention, you could also feed all the online numbers into that as well. Right. You can feed in all the online purchases that you make and start to make better assessments. And the tool of building on the skill of the app writer, you can be given guidance when you're interested in making something. You say, I'm thinking of buying this. What's my best bet? Already, websites are trying to vie for where the best place to buy a purchase online is, except because of the competitive nature, there's an exclusivity of holding that information away from the users.
But I guess my point though is this sounds like something that's a continuation of kind of what we have.
Yes.
So we've got an awakening population, and we are aware that there may be things called an event that happens or what that, but more and more people are awakening every single day. And go ahead.
Masa wants to say some people would use the term awakening, but a lot of people would more lines relate it to becoming more intelligent, actually. And more informed.
If I'm becoming more intelligent, and I can give you family members that would dispute that, but but if I'm becoming more intelligent and all these changes are happening and that sort of thing, I don't see the value necessarily. I see my trust in the system of having a job, especially maybe a job that I don't enjoy doing, that in the past was necessary in order to pay for rent, pay for food, pay for all those things. And as a society, we come to this awakening that society needs to provide some of the basics for people.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of people that are already talking
Mm-hmm.
about that. Switzerland is talking about giving a basic income every month. Other countries are
Swissindo.
already doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's an idea that's going to catch fire.
Mm-hmm. That's
And
that's
and
among several that could do really well.
so if I'm a baker
Mm-hmm.
and I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and I start the bread and I'm making this bread, and this is what I'm doing in order to have a house and have clothes for my kids and all of that. And
Yeah.
all of a sudden I'm getting my basic needs met, and maybe I don't want to be doing that anymore. But that means that there's less
Mm-hmm.
bread to go around
Mm-hmm.
unless somebody else steps into that position. So I guess my question is, with all of these changes kind of happening simultaneously or maybe sequentially or what have you,
Mm-hmm.
there's going to be massive number of changes just beyond, using our iPhones to buy things and get the best price for a gallon of milk.
He wants to give an example.
Okay, please do.
He says that in those 3 months, everything from paying rent to paying your internet bill, your
Hmm.
phone bill, to your groceries, to how much you spend on fuel for transportation. He believes that the efficiency will basically discount everything to about 70% less than what you currently pay.
Okay.
So your dollar's going to go a lot further. So in another way, it's another way of recognizing that you have more money now for all your basic essentials alone, without actually doing much of anything besides tracking your purchases and looking at, how the economy is restructuring itself as a result of true prices and true value being transparent to everyone around you.
Right.
So,
And granted, 3 months is a short amount of time. It's gonna take longer than that for people to trust the system is changing. To
the
to even
yeah.
start asking those questions that I was proposing.
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm,
so
mm-hmm.
it, so like what I'm proposing, maybe 2 years, maybe 5 years, maybe 50 years down the line. I don't know, but it's at some point in time that's going to happen also, and
Yes,
maybe that's for a different discussion.
and
Masa,
and it
if
all
Masa wants to grab a beer sometime, we can have that. Not part of the show, but that that's kind of what I was getting at too.
that's true. And I
Yes.
think there's a lot of factors, and he's just sort of yes. I mean, you're not wrong, um,
Right.
but he simply wanted to share from
Right.
the slightly more evolved approach,
Hmm.
how the solutions are at our fingertips right now,
Okay.
like in a present day
And I get that.
situation.
I get that. Yes.
More awareness will come when the overall sense of, and this is where was talked about a little bit earlier, self esteem
Hmm.
is raised. Self esteem literally goes with the evolution of consciousness as well,
Right.
including moving into spiritual euphoric levels of excitement and fulfillment. You might
Hmm.
think like product and money shouldn't be a factor on fulfillment, but it is. He says
Right.
there's no way you can cut it. The economy does affect your self-esteem and your
Hmm.
personal sense of self-worth, because if you're following the economy in any way or involved in it, it has a factor in you determining at a subconscious level, how hard you are trying to live your life based on meeting your needs and based on meeting your desires.
Right.
So your subconscious doesn't care what things cost. Subconscious only cares that you're getting it and that you can get it or not. And a
Hmm.
shift of 3 month period of time it doesn't have to be 3 months. It could be, a year even is a very healthy span of time. From he's saying,
Right.
you will have a new spiritual perspective or opening perspective, because now you not only will reevaluate things on the economic level, but you'll also be practiced at reevaluating things that have always been a particular way, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Yes.
how foreign policy is developed, for instance, how your government operates, all these little things will surface as a result, because it's all tied together, it's all networked.
Right.
So this idea of, humans, conspiracy theory terms again, are identified as sort of like a slave species to the 1%, that will ease up, and that will, sort of like reflect certain truths that are taking place under, or that have been taking place, behind the curtain.
Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, maybe that's we've gone already pretty long on that.
I know
that topic
we
already.
went on that long on that one. Okay. One question. Well, okay. So there were a couple of questions earlier that brought up the Ubuntu. Is that a possibility? And I have to admit, I'm not really up on the the niceties, the details about Ubuntu, but
We'll hear what he says on that.
yeah, let's hear what he says.
It's a form of contributionism, where basically people offer their time, expertise, and support towards creating a shift. And there's a point where the infrastructure needs to take place so that, it's easier to do contribution. It's easier to, manifest a world where everyone is contributing and it's logistically, organized, is what he's saying.
Mm-hmm.
And so its number one issue is actually logistics.
Right.
Its only factor is management. And unfortunately, a little bit of the management doesn't realize how important that is.
Okay.
So, there can be discussions if the Pleiadians want to talk with Ubuntu leaders. Hold on a second. Did you just volunteer me?
They can't volunteer you. You have to volunteer yourself.
I know. I'm just be clear about that, Masa. I know you think I'm a swell guy, but I'm not signing up for stuff until I know a little bit more about it. Okay. Well, anyways,
we can have that discussion later.
We can have that discussion on another day.
Yeah. Okay. There's another question here. Will this be a short transition until we're completely free of a system? But there's always going to be a system.
No. As long as there are forms of scarcity, economy will still be a word.
Right.
That people will know.
Yes. The higher realms when they don't have the scarcity, they don't deal with economies.
Yeah.
But the Pleiadians are talking about their economy. They've got a system that they are, and if we had Arturians here, or we had other groups here, we would be hearing about their systems too.
Yeah, and to be clear, when there's some movement and momentum going from the Pleiadians' perspective, the economist's suggestion is to, in order to remove economy, everybody just focus on the scarcity items. Mm-hmm. Like everybody give attention to, managing scarcity. Everything else basically becomes redundant and free. Right. Kind of like you don't pay tolls driving down the street, only in special occasions. So, things that don't need to have, basic needs even, like your house, your electricity, your internet bill, your television. Well, some might argue television's not that useful, but all those things will basically become a non-issue. When you only pay, $10 for rent, there's a point where, what are you going to do with the rest of your time? And do you really need to work, 40 hours a week any longer?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's better off you find yourself doing something else with your time because, you don't have anything besides a speedboat you got your eye on. I don't know. Right. And that's all it is. And then maybe just you and your buddies buy a speedboat and share it over time, and you figure that that's a better solution. Yeah. Sharing of pricey resources like Masa really likes the idea of timeshare systems.
Okay.
And they just share valuable resources. You can take turns, that sort of thing. Anyways,
Okay.
what were the other questions?
One more
Yeah.
quick question here. How quickly is it possible to become our own technology?
You mean like on the sort of like a mystical sense?
Uh, it was asked, I think, when we were talking about, uh, I don't know.
Well, I think I'm actually getting back to knowing what that was.
Okay.
Our own technology means that through law of attraction we realize exactly how to find our balance.
Right.
Economy is just an artificial balancing apparatus,
Hmm.
and as long as we trust it, and usually we trust things where everyone benefits from it. Oftentimes that artificial manifestations through that mechanism serve their purpose, despite
Right.
the idea that technology appears to be the contributor to it or not. But anyone can find this balance. Anyone can find a balance with their own economic factors. You can always find yourself getting the good deal, or showing up on the day things are on special, or really just having people who are just giving you stuff because for whatever reason that makes sense in your experience.
Hmm.
Synchronicity can basically overrun all of that. This economy system is not necessarily for the very awakened people. There's a lot of people on the following this show at this moment who are very awakened, very
Right.
clear about the value of things and how to determine the value of things for themselves. But in the end, artificialness is more along the lines meant to support people to
Exactly.
keep up to the level of the natural way of doing it.
Perfect.
Okay, and that's
Yes. Well.
mostly what the 1% are doing. They're practicing the natural way
Hmm.
and choosing and following their intentions and living out their intentions. They're not really cheating. They're operating by natural law of how manifestation operates. And in many ways,
Well.
they don't operate in the same way via the same rules because their reality does not have the same subsets of considerations as we do, having us outside the 1%, having grown up with sort of like the economy being taught to us rather than us choosing what the economy will be.
Yes.
People choose the economy. You want to be good at playing Monopoly, you choose to beat that game, however it
Hmm.
takes to do that. And they basically treat it as a game in most cases. They don't take
Right.
it as seriously as life and death. As many people it is, meeting their needs is a life and death situation.
Yeah. Definitely. Okay.
So
Okay. So we had a couple of questions come to us during the week. You want to get to those now?
yeah, they were those were good questions. I like what they were, and I was going to share them, but here we can share them more widely rather than just answering the post or the posts.
Yeah. Okay. So the first one is, how can we move forward into a positive, expanded reality while we are living the ends of this reality? Intellectually, I understand, but to bring it into my open heart sometimes is a very difficult thing.
Okay. Um, so the easy answer is find a way to hold balance. Balance is like that tightrope wire, you know, analogy.
Yes.
Um, so finding balance for yourself will ultimately get you through any challenge. That's just it's the way it is. Essentially, there's supposed to be technically there's no challenge that you cannot overcome if you're finding a balanced approach to it, and that balance
Mhm.
means by its nature that it is developing, that it's not the same answer after every step that you take. At different stages of along the tightrope wire, the game of balancing can become more difficult or easier, depending on infinite numbers of factors. So you were going to say something?
Well, I was just going to say, when we're used to using some of these phrases that have been around for so long, but when we're using the phrase there aren't any challenges that we can't overcome. Does that limit how we deal with the challenges too? Because not necessarily if we view it as a challenge, it doesn't necessarily mean we have to overcome it. It could be something that we need to integrate into ourselves or deal with in a different way other than just overcoming.
Yeah, and it's not, and balancing means more like moving through the experience.
Exactly.
Like, coming through the experience in as natural a way as it would seem
Because
possible.
if you're looking at a challenge that you have to overcome, it's already a hill you have to climb. It's
It's
already
already called a hill.
yes, it's already called a hill. Whereas it doesn't necessarily have to be from that perspective.
That's true. And usually obstacles are presented from the emotional spectrum before it sort of like gets to the intellectual side of like trying to solve a problem.
Hmm.
Like, you know, this person pushed me down. Like that just outright upsets me, mostly because of a belief system of associative, issues that relate to it. But the emotions tip you off to a problem, and then intellectually you try to work on the problem, and depending on your emotional state, it's harder to have an equilibrium. So maybe it's a kid on the playground who gets pushed by a bully.
Right.
He wants to push him back, but that can be a problem, for him if he's going to try to push him back. So oftentimes the problem itself simply needs an opportunity to be seen from a different perspective, which is may sound easy or not easy depending on how you put it. By operating from a different mood, observing it from a different state of mind. It doesn't even have to be evolved. It doesn't have to be like Ascension
No.
or something like that. Just this idea of like sometimes being calm after you're angry will give you open up all sorts of doors of opportunities that you can take. That is more than just fight back.
Well, and also the idea of moving into a positive, expanded reality, as was in the question, doesn't mean that there still won't be challenges.
Mm-hmm. It's
And
more
and
like observing
that reality.
progress towards that, actually.
Right.
So,
Right.
in the observation of progress, and done in balance, as in you're not creating problems by finding progress.
Mhm.
You're more like finding that middle path on an individual level. You're gonna find yourself stepping outside the boundaries of what you were taught or what society tends to assess.
Right.
And as you step outside, prior assessments that you might have been inclined to just follow along without considering, you'll be reassessing your own internal value system, much like we were talking about the economy. You'll reassess what the value is in your decisions and make healthier decisions for perhaps you and as many people as you can consider.
Hmm.
So, in this way, walking the middle path is significantly unique for each person, and
Yes.
developing some successes will go a long way to making you feel like you can tackle larger issues, right? So your self-esteem builds as you realize that having a little bit more bounce than you practiced before, or seeking, having the intention for sort of like the win-win sort of approach. The optimism is latent within the results. You'll find that there are more and more opportunities for you to make those sort of baby steps. And a lot of people want they want success overnight. I know.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
but oftentimes it's more along the line of teaching yourself, and practicing a skill. I mean, you could just treat it like a skill of micromanaging, your moods so that you can adjust moods. It's not necessarily ignoring a problem, because you could ignore a cliff and still walk off it. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's not going to go away because you looked away from it and you keep you know bouncing into the edge of the cliff. You almost keep falling off every time. Give attention to this sort of like that the answers are found in a different state of mind, right? Like wherever
Right.
your state of mind is, and that's why basically meditation is consider a very common practice for helping people elevate their experience, because meditation is often the top of the food chain with regard to being calm and seeing the larger picture, or seeing a greater set of avenues that you can choose from. So without going all the way in how to totally find balance,
Right.
just the determination for finding yourself going through an experience in a balanced state, and the balanced state is often the idea that everybody should be winning, like you should win, and those who are attributed with the experience are also winning. Like, try to find that way where everyone is sort of like benefiting equally. It's like equality doesn't mean I give you something because you don't have it and now I don't have it either. That's not what it means. It's like there's a win-win in every story. Just like there's a lose-lose in every story, Like, you can give the bum, the last money you have, and then you watch him go, buy something inappropriate with it, and you also don't have any money. You're upset at him. You feel like he's doing the wrong thing, and you feel, that's just, perspective of negativity. So the idea of positivity or optimism often is a part of trying to give everyone equal opportunity and sort of like balancing out. Like, I'm not super taking advantage of this, and I'm not, so humble that I give away everything that matters to me to someone else. It's finding that equilibrium. Like, what is the highest line of comfort that helps you feel good about both sides of the experience. Look for like that win-win, and you'll find that progress moves very, very quickly. Like, life just starts to get easier. And some people, it's all about being very selfish, and they don't give a hoot about anyone else. And some people, it's all about service to others is the primary way for living. But both of them have their imbalance if gone too far in one perspective or the other. There's a point where service to others is wonderful, but at the same time, you're the primary producer of all experiences within you. I mean, you're the kind of the center of all attraction to begin with. You're more observing the outside, so you can always treat the outside, and that only goes so far. And you can always treat you without paying attention to the signs that is a reflection of your own attraction, and only goes so far as well without paying attention to the data out in your outer life.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Was there a question in the chat room? I see my name.
You always notice your name, don't you? No. Well, actually, there's been a couple comments and questions about replicators, and so
okay.
I'm going to get to this one then, so that we can at least get on the topic of replicators, and then we have the other question too. But
that's cool.
How can there be scarcity when replicators exist? Is there a limit to what you can replicate?
So, replicators is still a technology that doesn't immediately get adopted by anyone. It's a vibration for it to exist in the population. So, much like, you can't just teach algebra to kindergartners, right? There is a state of progression towards how things sort of work, right? So right now you probably noticed that there are 3D printers out there, and that's a technological way of, printing objects in 3D, and it's fairly exclusive. You gotta, they're probably expensive. They're getting cheaper, I think, and to actually create the models that would be, produced, not everyone comes with that skill. So it has some exclusivity. It has some, it's a small margin environment. It's not, people are not building, spaceships out of these things. It's only going so far at the moment, and it's considered a very safe technology. That's why it even exists, in our public sector. Regarding, excuse me, drink of water. Regarding the
get a Red Bull.
Yeah.
Get a Red Bull.
Regarding the private sector level of replicators, where many people are aware they exist, it is it's more along the lines where replicators would change the economy so quickly that it's intentionally suppressed by those who are masters of the economy at the moment, or the master deciders of how the economy is going to operate. The monopoly game winners. So, in one sense of the word, the replicators don't vibrate. They don't vibrationally associate with what people believe is real. Sure, maybe you get enough YouTube videos out of it, of an actual demonstration, people will be ready overnight, right? But we don't even have those experiences to draw upon. We don't even have, written out ways of describing the technology, for instance. Like we can't, there's no Einstein telling us how to make a replicator yet. But is it an actual technology? It is. It's just very, it follows up on many other things. It's like technically we can invent it. We don't even need to have it, be brought to us. But another level, replicators is also a very dangerous technology. So at the same time as you might think, oh, replicators are great, the next thing your neighbor's replicating a handgun, a bunch of bullets, and holds you at gunpoint and says,
Right.
Get out of my neighborhood. I don't like you. So, replicators don't exactly have fail-safe systems, in them, or creating fail-safe systems within them is not something a replicator can self account for and modulate, right? Like you could basically say, okay, I won't download the blueprint for a handgun or a bomb, but I'll just make it myself. I'll massage some Play-Doh into the shape of like a gun and make a copy of it.
Right.
Or I take somebody else's gun, I put it in there and makes a copy. So at the moment, it is not considered a safe technology at large. Okay, and with that,
no matter how much like David Wilcock talks about it, and
it is wonderful, but it does need people to be above a certain level of fear in their life.
Right.
At a minimum level of vibrational balance before it can be taken seriously as a whole. I know.
And that's going to be a population thing because...
Yeah, I know people are going to hate me for saying that, but it's okay.
Somebody hates you.
No.
They hope you're wrong.
That's great. That's the good attitude. That's the right attitude.
Yeah,
hope I'm wrong, and you'll see replicators before I do in my life. Oh, that'd be great.
Okay.
I mean, I actually know how they work. That's the funny thing.
There was a question about that. You want to give 2 minutes on that?
Sure. So, the idea of like food-only replicators. No, replicators are replicators. They're non-biased. They're non-intelligent. Mostly what they're doing is they're making associations on something that you're presenting. So when you say, I want a coffee or whatever like that, it's going to have a coffee that it's already interpreted is exactly what you want, right? The reason why I know about replicators is because I did a human version of replication in the penny experiment, where I had one penny, and I've talked about this before, where I made a copy of a penny in my right hand that was in my left hand. That's replication. That is basically taking all the vibrational attributes of one and superimposing it in a different time-space environment. And that's all the replicator does. It still needs a basis on which to read something. So it's like, it's not like a computer. It says, do my homework for me. Just give me a copy of my finished homework. It can only make a copy of something that's already been finalized, right?
Sure.
So in this way, because of the freedom of information, no replicator will be able to exclude anything somebody has scanned somewhere. We could say, don't hook this thing up to the internet, people, but, everyone's got internet, and they're going to find out how to do it. So, the information is going to be there for the replicator to produce anything conceivable, including, gold, cash, or whatever. And you'd say, oh, that's great. That's just, all our fears will go away because we don't have weapons anymore. Well, not everyone is, we'll call it, that kind of sane that can handle that equation. Many people will still try to wrestle with reality and priorities in themselves, and they still have to go through that right now. People still are going through the processing of the deeper priorities, learning that love is really sort of like the, it's, even though love is a beautiful word, it's still a very general guidance system for a more effective life, right? And you can't tell a replicator, give me love. It won't happen that way.
Okay. Let's. We've got a few more minutes. Let's go back to the other question that we had sent to us this week.
Yeah, the one that was prepared. Yeah.
Yeah, I've read The Law of One material channeled by Carla Ruckert, and am now in the process of reading Living the Law of One 101, The Choice. So what I wanted to ask you, and maybe you could ask this to Pleiadians or you source. My question is, Carla talks about moving into 5D, leaving 3D reality. But she seems to be saying that we need to drop the body to move into 5D. My understanding is that this is not necessary anymore, that we do not need to drop the body this time. Can you address that?
That's a tough one, isn't it? But it's actually quite easy. The answer is simple. No, you're not going to drop the body.
Right.
And your physical body will transition, and when yours does, everyone else's does. I know it sounds bizarre to think that everyone benefits from your work, but that's actually how it operates. You're not getting a different body. You're moving to another dimension. You yourself are moving to a dimension where everybody effectively has the experience at the same time. Okay? There's only a few people that will not have that experience at the same time, and they will live excruciating deaths at that moment. Those people, you may have no idea who they are, so it won't really be a factor for you.
Right.
Okay? But those people who are living excruciating deaths are basically people that you would never find an interest being close to what they have to offer your reality. So in some ways, that's been described as an apocalypse, a terrible ending for some people, and a great beginning for others. And so for each person, you entering a new body quite literally means your body still feels the same. I mean, you're still present in an apparatus, we could call it, but your apparatus fundamentally starts living as if you were somewhat in a dream, like a lucid dream, and that you can do things that weren't as easy as before. So you're actually moving into a dream dimension. We're already in a dream dimension, FYI. You're moving to a different dream dimension, and you're working towards that in your own personal way. I'm doing it. Don's doing it. Everybody's doing it who has any sense of purpose towards raising their vibration. It's unconscious too. You can't even stop it if you wanted to. So basically, you are leaving how life was very, very quickly as a result. And some people may not perceive that anything has changed. I mean, but most people will. Most people, it will take them within a couple of days to realize stuff is not working the same way. Things are much more luminous. Things like seeing auras is normal. And you might think you're going crazy, but when everyone says they see auras, then, you don't feel so odd, right?
Right.
But it's mostly because the fractal energy that would be in auras is actually closer to the vibration that you currently exist in. So it's now just a part of your normal visual spectrum, right? You can do that without crystalline body associative experiences because it's a perception thing. All you need is part of you to be able to do that. And that's, an example in my case why I see auras all the time. But, the whole body will also, you'll have graduated to a point where issues with your health are seen as more like mental constructs of beliefs that just fall away and are valueless at a certain point. And, illness goes along, out the door with that too. So, did that, you think that answered the question? I can't remember the whole question.
It's a good one. Yeah, I think that did. We've gotten some comments, so it was a good question and good answer. How long ago did your Pleiadian friends ascend?
Well, I don't know if you're going to like this answer. Um, Ascension isn't a single point.
Right.
It's a continual journey. And so, with regards to the Pleiadians, many of them are just born there, right? They
Mm-hmm.
don't know anything else. Are they ascending to something else? Yeah, they are.
Mm-hmm.
I've already talked about them having sort of like a 3.5D, or maybe some
Right.
people call that 4D existence. There's 5D ones and there's 70 ones. I don't know about the 60 ones. They don't seem to be present on the ship that I visit. Um, and yeah, they have different lives and they have physically different features that are obvious. For instance, the seventh dimensional ones are tall, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the fifth dimensional ones, they all look like they're right around 30 years old. The third dimensional ones are like all the ages up until 30 years old, right?
Okay.
Physically. The other thing with the fifth dimensional ones is that they have a perpetual low grin. Like they're just like you can't see them as not particularly enjoying everything that's going on somehow, right? The seventh dimensional ones, they actually hide their face half the time because when you look at their face, you start downloading them. Like you start receiving their high
Mm-hmm.
vibration just by being around them. Especially when I'm walking around the ship and I've caught them and I was like, do they look like lizards or something? Like why are they hiding half the time? And then they realize that it's just like, I'm looking at an angel kind of effect.
Uh,
And they all have their own problems, believe it or not. Even in seventh dimensional, they all have very peculiar approaches. I think we've talked with them in the past,
mm-hmm.
and you can see that different seventh dimensional Pleiadians contribute in various areas of specialty and expertise.
Right.
But at least for the ascension of the Pleiadians, um, they love learning new things, and so sometimes they do kind of what we do, which is go into absence of mind and lack of reflection and lose memory and that sort of thing, and operate on just like a part lobotomy kind of effect. They do this by going to planets that have less oxygen, planets that have more oxygen, planets that have poisons, in the atmosphere, planets that have, dangerous animals, that don't give a crap if they eat you. So,
Mm-hmm.
including fear vibration. They do all sorts of experiments that do not necessarily lead them to an exit point necessarily, but they need to, move past fears, learn to manifest beyond vibrational limits in order to become more. And they do that, and that's kind of an ascension of sorts, like winning the board game in a way.
Right.
That doesn't stop. That continues in many different stages of life. Some people will go through what's called this ascension and just be seventh dimensional or higher. Some people will just go straight out way past ninth, and ninth is the last place that even has physical looking features like arms and eyes and legs and mouths and stuff.
Cool.
Okay.
Okay. Well,
Does that
I
wrap it
think
up
that
for
was.
today?
I think that wraps up. Well, we want to talk about Saturday.
Yes. So we've got a new show, and we teased it a little bit last week.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have you share a little bit about it since it's actually kind of you're the main host of that show.
I'm going to be the main question. Well, because we knew when we started this show that there were people that are probably more interesting to listen to than us.
How dare they
Around.
think that? No.
So we thought that at the
We
time.
thought that. Well, that's
We
right.
thought that at the time.
How dare us for think of that?
And so we kind of had this whole thing in the background that there's people who are actually doing the work of the future. We didn't want
Yeah.
to this show to be about rehashing the past or uncovering things that eventually we're going to all know about our true histories and all that kind of stuff and be predicting it and gnashing our teeth over what's happened in the past. We wanted to how do we take this energy that we're moving through right now and then create a future for humanity? And
Mm-hmm.
so
Mm-hmm.
And there's people that are doing that to a certain extent, whether they know that they're doing that or not. Some are very active in the online community. Moving towards Ascension, they talk about it, they blog about it, or what have you. And then there are other people that are just doing it
Mhm.
and creating businesses and that sort of thing. And then we want to talk to them too. So when Julian and I were together a couple weekends ago, we said, "Hey, okay, it's time." So our first guest Saturday night is going to be Steve Becko from the Golden Age of Gaia. I have a
Website,
f-
yeah.
yeah, the website. So he's been blogging there for quite some time. Followed him for quite a while,
Hmm.
and so we're very excited about having Steve. We'll probably be talking about some of the things that we were talking about tonight because I know Steve is
Mm.
very big into working. I know he works a lot with Archangel Michael,
Hmm.
who he talks to through Linda Dillon,
Hmm.
his channel, and he's involved in the financial end of the future. Looking at reval and different ways of creating. And one of the new things he's talking about is creating a community of light workers to get this work done. And
Hmm.
we're going to talk to him about that on Saturday night.
Yeah,
And
very
we're very
exciting,
excited about.
very exciting stuff that he has to share.
Yes.
If you're already a follower of him, still show up and ask questions that, we are going to have a question and answer session,
Yes.
or maybe along the way. And,
Yeah.
definitely bring your insights, bring your excitement and bring your curiosity.
Right.
And let's have fun and welcome him
Do it.
to the people that already follow this show. I think.
Exactly. I think it'd be great to blend the two, and this one's going to be live.
Mhm.
We realize that probably not all of them are going to be live because of schedules and time
Time
zones
zones,
around the
yeah.
world and that sort of thing. So take advantage of this one. Be here live, and we'll try to get to as many questions as we can.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
And I will, the link is going to be the same. It's going to be the same place. It's going to be right here. It's just going to
Hmm.
be, and our show starts at, 6 o'clock Wednesdays here. This show will be 6 o'clock Saturdays.
6 o'clock
So,
Pacific.
Pacific. So, whatever
Yeah.
time this show started for you is going to be the same on Saturday.
Right.
And we're hoping it's going to be a good series. We have a lot of people that, we're asking to come forward. So, we should have somebody new every week.
Some you may have heard of, some you've never heard of, and
And we'd be happy to introduce you to.
yes.
In some cases, this it may be someone Don's more familiar with, or someone I
Hmm.
might be more familiar with. But and just I'm going to let Don sort of like guide that show a lot more than than we do in this one,
Hmm.
because I feel like he's probably a little easier to work with on an initial impact.
I don't know
I'll
about that.
still be there. I'll give my commentary here and there, and maybe
I'm
talk.
going to drag you in, kicking
Yeah,
and screaming if I have to. But
yeah,
there may be times where it's great to hear from the Pleiadians or the council or whoever
of
can come
course.
through
Mm-hmm.
and
Mm-hmm.
all of that, depending on who the guest is and all
Yeah,
that. So we're excited. We're excited about this, a new chapter for
it's
us.
a very big chapter, and
Yeah.
it's been sort of long overdue. I think we've been discussing this for a long time.
We have been discussing it, but we've been getting used to this whole process too, the two of us, and working
Yeah.
together. So we're
So
ready.
again, thanks for everybody joining us today.
Thank you.
See us
Thanks
again
for.
on Saturday, or catch the replay on Saturday.
Mhm.
It'll pop up, shortly after the airing, just like this show does.
Right.
And if you haven't already, subscribe to the newsletter at julianwells.com to get updates on, one-off recordings like I've done recently, or any sort of like the latest news going on. Crystal's been sort of the keeping people up to date and keeping my blog. It's not really a blog space, but it is a great place to get updates and news.
Right.
And also, there's my Facebook spot, the Julian Wells public page on at Facebook. Get a lot of information there. You can follow me. You can add me on Facebook directly. my private Facebook. It's not public, but if you want to add me, you can see what shenanigans I get up to there, and you can find Don there too, mind you. I'm opening you up to Don to getting a lot of visitors.
Absolutely. Find me on Facebook, and we're working on other ways to find me too.
Yeah. Yes. So, cheers, everyone. Good night.
Thank you so much.
And thank you, Don, for such an awesome show.
Thanks, Julien. That was great. Thanks.
Okay, good night.